You could be free right now. How free? I'm here on an island in Greece. It's called Crete. I'm gonna show it to you. Mostly sea on this side. Now, I just came here. I just booked this gorgeous villa. I'll show it, it's just behind. Maybe you can see. Here we go. There we are. It's gorgeous. I just booked this place 2 weeks ago and here I am. All right. No annual leave that I had to book, plan this holiday a few months in advance. None of that. This is just my life. For 99% of you, the life that you have is the life that you choose. It's the life that you're choosing every day. There might be 1 or 2 of you out of 100 that are watching this video that maybe don't live in a actual free society and you're not living in the first world free, civilization. But for 99% of you, you are. And so the life that you have is the life that you chose. If you have neither location freedom nor time freedom, it's because you're choosing to not have either of those things right now. You know that one friend you have that is in a perpetually toxic or abusive relationship? Maybe you have a friend that, she has an abusive boyfriend and she always says she's gonna leave him. She's always talking about it. She's always talking about how he's emotionally abusive or maybe even physically abusive, right? She's always saying she's gonna leave. Maybe she leaves for a day and everybody is telling her like, look, you've done the right thing. Like, this is good for you, right? You're making some kind of progress. Like, this is good, affirming her choice. And then after a day, she goes back. Maybe not even after a day, maybe 2 days, 3 days, a week, but she goes back. She eventually always goes back to that relationship that she recognizes and that everybody that cares about her recognizes is toxic or bad for her. This is you with your life, okay, with the job that you hate, or the bad habits that you have, the video games that you play, the things that you're scrolling social media for an hour, just swiping, and you feel like shit afterwards. Like this is all stuff that you at least know on some base level isn't good for you in the long term, or isn't something that you want to continue doing, right? But you keep going back. You essentially have Stockholm syndrome for your own life that you don't like, right? So Stockholm syndrome is the phenomenon where someone gets captured, right? They get kidnapped and the victim of the kidnapping ends up, sort of falling in love with the kidnapper, or basically once they are freed, they will keep thinking about the kidnapper. They'll want to go back in some weird way, okay? You essentially have this for the elements of your life that you don't actually like and that are bad for you, but you cling to them. And I would even go as far as to say that most of you are probably worse than that friend that you have, the one in the toxic relationship. You're probably actually worse than her, because she, at least, maybe she's staying because she really loves this guy. And there's something virtuous about that, right? But you're staying exactly where you are just for lack of motivation, right? Just because you're unmotivated, or you're feeling a little bit lazy, or you're feeling a little bit too comfortable, right? So in some sense, you're even worse than that friend that you think in your head, you're like, oh yeah, if that was me, I wouldn't do that. I would know better. And if you're an intelligent person, which I'm pretty sure you are watching this video, this is even worse, right? Because if you're intelligent, what you're doing right now is you're seeing all of the people who are, making it, or, actually just becoming free people on social media, maybe not having to work as much as you, or they're able to travel all the time, right? You're looking at these people, and if you're intelligent, what you're doing is you're looking at them and you're coming up with these sort of sour grapes analogies. Like, that idea that, the grapes that are out of reach, you just say, oh, well, you know what? They're probably sour anyway, right? Like, if you're an intelligent person, your brain is doing that, right? It might even have done that in this video when I I showed, you know, Crete and everything, there might have been this little voice in your head that was like, oh, must be nice, like must be nice for this guy, like whatever, you know, but that like he must be doing something like illegal, or he must be scamming people, or he must like there was something probably that came up there where, because what you're looking at is making you, or making a part of your brain fundamentally uncomfortable and making you feel pain, your brain tries to explain away that pain, right? It tries to come up with some kind of rational argument for why, you know, the pain that you're experiencing now is perfectly okay and you should just stay exactly where you are and you don't have to do anything, right? Like that's that part of your brain, that's what it's trying to do. If you've seen like Avengers Endgame, you're like Hawkeye, you know, where he was like going and like killing a bunch of people and like doing all this mercenary work, and then what's her face, Black Widow Black Widow, you know, finds him, and then, you know, he turns around, he's like, don't do that, don't give me hope, you know, when she's talking about like bringing everybody back. Like that's you. It's like you see these videos and you're like, don't give me hope, you know, because what's the pain? The pain that you feel when you watch these videos is the pain of change. It's the pain of your brain realizing that, yo buddy, we gotta make changes. But the problem is, as long as the pain of change is greater than the pain of staying the same, you will always stay exactly where you are. Because as humans, we are hardwired in our biology to avoid pain, right? Like for necessary, you know, purposes. Like if you put your hand on a hot stove, your biology is going to tell you immediately to remove it, right? If you put yourself in a psychologically painful situation, it's a survival bias, right? To extract you from that, or especially, you know, physically dangerous, a physically painful situation. It's a survivability bias, literally. It's encoded in you to remove yourself from that painful situation, right? So the problem is that if the pain of change is greater in your mind than the pain of staying the same, you will always choose to just stay the same, okay? And the fucked up part is that the pain of change it's always there. There is no way to bypass it. There's no way to circumvent this. It's always there. And it's always the same. In fact, I would say that as time goes on, it gets even more painful to change. Okay, right now, if you're watching this, you're probably a young guy. Okay, you're probably in your 20s, or maybe you're a teenager. Okay, imagine the pain of change, whatever it is now. Okay, imagine that compared to the pain of uprooting your entire life when you're like 50 and you have like 3 kids and you have a wife and you have a mortgage maybe that you're still paying, and you have all of these and you got the kids, like their debt from their, you know, maybe you're paying for their education. Like you have all of this going on. Imagine trying to uproot all of that and completely change your life to be a trajectory that you could take right now. Imagine that, right? So the pain of change only increases with time. So here's the good news. If you're still watching this video, then let's face it, like you're not the average person. Right? You're probably fairly intelligent. You have a great attention span actually compared to the average like person in 2024. Like most people, 80% of people probably would have just clicked off this video at this point because it wasn't one of those top 7 business models of 2024. And you know that this isn't one of those videos, and that's why you're still watching, right? Because you know that you've already watched like 10 of those videos and you're just as stuck as you were from before you watched them. Okay, so you're not like those people, right? You're not average. You're probably fairly intelligent, and you actually probably have great potential to achieve greatness in whatever way that you choose to in your life. And so the good news is that you're intelligent and you're also curious, right? And you're taking accountability for being stuck in the current situation that you're in. Right, and so I'm confident that you're gonna make it to the end of this video no problem, because you have the attention span for that. And if you take these principles that we're gonna talk about and actually apply them in your life, then this video could genuinely change your life, right? And change the way that you look at the world. And that is where freedom begins. So far in this video, we've talked about location freedom and we've talked about time freedom, right? So let's hit the elephant in the room right now. If you want these two things, you have 2 options, okay? Option number 1 is you become a monk and you renounce all of your worldly possessions, and you can have location freedom and time freedom-ish by doing that, Okay, now 99.9% of you would not even consider that. Okay, but that's option one. Okay, option two is making fuck you money. Okay, what is fuck you money? It's having enough income that you are no longer beholden to any authorities that would otherwise obstruct your location or time freedom, right? So that could be a boss, it could be a landlord, it could be a bank or a government. So what does this mean? It means that location and time freedom are downstream of financial freedom, okay? And so the next question in your head is going to be, okay, well, how do I get there? How do I achieve financial freedom? Guys, there's like 30 or 40 different like businesses or ways to make money online or with social media that you could literally start from your bedroom. Okay, so this is not what that video is going to be about. I'm actually going to be telling you in this video why, you know, the reality is that you just need to pick one of those and fucking start, right? But I'm going to tell you why, even if you did pick one of those and start right now, you'd probably still fail. I'm going to tell you exactly why, because based on who you are right now, you could pick any of these and you're probably still going to fail, right? Because you lack the qualities and the characteristics of the person, the version of you who could succeed with any of those 30 businesses, right? And that's who we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about what that person actually looks like, so you can start implementing these traits, you can start developing them for yourself. And if you don't, and you don't implement any of these things, that's also fine. As a wise man once said, somebody needs to flip the burgers. Now, the first principle that the version of you who could succeed uses that you're not using is they're focused on subtracting from their life and not adding, right? Like, you're probably sitting there thinking, okay, if I want to become more productive, I want to get more work done, I need to add things, right? I need to be a more productive person. What are people doing? Okay, they're gonna take like cold shower in the morning. Okay, I'm gonna add a cold shower. I'm gonna add a morning routine. I'm gonna have supplements that are gonna help me focus. I'm gonna add those supplements, and then I'm gonna do a cold shower in the morning, and then I'm gonna, like, you need to stop adding shit to your life. You already have too much going on, right? The problem is not that you need to add more things to become productive. You actually need to subtract. Another name for this principle is death by 1,000 cuts, right? Because it's not that you're dying from one big strike, but it's 1,000 small little things that you're doing in your day that are taking up your cognitive real estate and your energy, right? And that is what's sapping you slowly because you're being pulled in so many different directions, right? I'm sure some of you have seen this diagram, right, before. You've probably seen this somewhere, maybe you haven't. But this is exactly what it is, right? If your energy is spread out in so many different directions, you can only go so far in each of those directions. Versus if you diverted all of that energy to one direction, you can go extremely far, right? And so the problem is you have too many things going on. You're saying yes to too many things in your life, right? Like, I know for the beginnings of my adulthood, I was saying yes to everything. It was a huge problem, right? I was doing at least 7 different things at one time, right? When I was in university, for example, I had my degree that I was doing, right? And I had leadership roles, so I was captain of a sports team, and then I was competing competitively in jiu-jitsu, right, outside of school, right? And then I was a student council member in my faculty, and then I had a girlfriend as well, and I was going out, you know, socializing a lot, partying every single week, right? And like, I was going to the gym as well. I was trying to get big. So like, I'm doing like 7 different things. That's just off the top of my head. Like, do you think I was doing any of those decent? Yeah, I was doing all of them pretty decent. But was I ever doing any of those great or exceptional? No, I couldn't. There's no way, right? Because my energy points, everyone's energy points are finite. You can't have all of those 7 things be at 100%, right? So I was giving, you know, Confucius has a saying, the man who chases 2 rabbits catches neither. Bro, I was chasing 7 rabbits at the same time, right? Do you think I was exceptional at those? No, I could do them all well enough, right? But if you want to be exceptional and if you want to live an exceptional life, right? A life of freedom, then you have to do exceptional things. Right? And so you need to subtract from those 7 things, right? So here's an action step for you to do. Write out the 7 things that are most important to you in your priority list of life right now. Pause the video. I promise you, just pause the video and write out the 7 things in order that matter from most highest priority to lowest priority. Write that list down now. Okay? So right now, you should be back, right? You should have this list of 7 things. Now I want you to look at that list and cancel off the bottom 5 and just have the top 2 left. Okay, that is what you should be focusing on. That is what all your energy should be going into. Fuck everything else, fuck the bottom 5, focus on the top 2. Right, so for you that might be business and loved ones, maybe, okay? That's it. Okay, you have to be willing to sacrifice things at least temporarily, right? Because here's the thing, like if you're not even willing to sacrifice these things temporarily, think about the person who's willing to sacrifice them forever, because that person does exist, right? And so is that person going to outcompete you? Yes. Is that okay? Should you be okay with that? Also yes, right? Because if you're someone that actually wants a little bit more balance in your life at some point, then that's fine. You're going to be happy with that, and they're going to be happy being completely imbalanced forever, right? But here's the thing, you need to go through what Alex Hormozi calls the season of no, right? It's just a season. It's not forever, right? Like this is a great way to conceptualize it, because we're also worried that, oh, you know, let's say, what if I stop hanging with my friends, I stop hanging out with them, they're going to forget me? Like it's just a season that you have to go through, right? A season of saying no. Sometimes the best productivity hack in the world really is just saying no, right? And yes, you might get some shit for this. In fact, you're probably going to get a lot of shit from this, from let's say your friends or just people that you know, because they're going to start, you know, especially, okay, like pro tip, like if they start doing this, they're not really your friends, okay? But they're going to start saying things like, oh, Mr. Big Shot, huh? Like, look at you. What do you think you're doing? Like, you know, oh, you know, don't forget us when you're fucking, when you're all succeeded, when you're all famous. Oh, don't forget us. And like, no, you know, you're too good for us now. You can't even hang out with us on a Saturday. We always go out. We always like, what do you think you're doing? Oh, you're eating salads now? Like, look at this guy. Like, you're going to get some of that. Okay. So that's normal. Okay. And again, like I said, pro tip, if they do that, they're not really your friends. Okay. But you're going to get that flack, you're going to get shit. And I want you to reframe this in your mind now and realize that that exact reaction that you get from people around you, that is actually a sign that you're on the right track. Like that is actually the sign that you're about to, or you're on the path to doing something great. You're on the path to greatness, right? Like think about it this way. Do you think if every time someone told Michael Jordan to like, yo bro, like dude, slow down man, like stop training so often, like all you ever do is train, like what's wrong with you, like just come out with us, like why are you going train so early, like yo just chill, do you think you'd know his name? Do you think you'd even know of his existence if every time someone said that to him he listened and he just went, oh yeah, okay, yeah, you're right? You wouldn't, okay? Because he wouldn't have become Michael Jordan. He wouldn't have been able to do those great things that he did, right? And so realize that, like reframe this now and realize that this is the cost of greatness is these things. These are the things that you have to sacrifice momentarily. Now, like I said, it's just a season of no. You have to sacrifice these things. You have to incur these costs to have the thing that you want, right? And some of those costs are going to be, like I said, a little bit of, you know, social, like a little bit of banter, a little bit of people like trying to pull you down a little bit because you're trying to, you know, you're like a crab like crawling out of a bucket and there's another crab just trying to pull you down, right? Say things to pull you down. This is normal, okay? So recognize that this is actually a sign that you're on the path to actually doing a great thing. The principle that we just covered is subtracting instead of adding, right? And we also talked about how you're gonna get some flack for that and that's perfectly normal. Okay, now the second reason why the successful version of you can actually make it and you right now, the current version of you, can't, is because what takes them 1 hour to do takes you a week. Okay, literally you right now, you would take a week to do something that I would probably do in an hour, or that the successful version of you would do in an hour. Your current work efficiency is rubbish. It's really so bad, okay? And again, this is normal. This is perfectly normal for most people, and this is why most people stay exactly where they are, and that's why the average exists, right? But why? So why is this the case? The first reason is that your dopamine reward circuitry in your brain is fried, okay? Like when it's time for you to do something hard, what's the response? You take out Instagram, okay? You run into a problem, you run into something that requires you to expend energy. What do? You take out Instagram. Oh, this thing's really tough. Damn, what do I do about this? 10 seconds later, boom, you're swiping. Now, dopamine is actually the motivation chemical of the brain, right? So it's supposed to, your body rewards you when you're climbing, right? When you're doing something, you're getting somewhere closer to your goal. It's on the climb that, on the little sort of milestones that you get up on that climb, is when your body gives you those hits of dopamine to get you to keep going, right? So it's actually a motivation chemical. So the problem now is that in the modern day, our dopamine circuits are hijacked by things that aren't even helping us to climb at all. They're not actually getting us anywhere, but they've tricked our brains into giving us this stimulus, right? That gives us the motivation to keep doing this thing, to keep swiping, right? Except that's not actually getting us anywhere in the grand scheme of things, right? So we've become hooked to these essentially social media apps. All of them are just virtual slot machines, actually, right? Like, it's actually a slot machine. You know those like casinos where you pull the ching and then the slot machine, like, it starts to do all those like things and you see if you can get the jackpot. That's literally what Instagram and TikTok are designed specifically for, guys. Like, it's actually designed this way. It's psychology, right? The people, the engineers behind these apps, they know what they're doing. When you swipe, you're swiping like when you pull down on your feed, boom, ching, you don't know what you're gonna get on your feed now that you've pulled down. It's a slot machine, literally, okay? So we're hooked on these virtual slot machines and on things like competitive video games. Oh, I could talk about this for like an hour, okay? Because I was someone that was addicted to competitive video games as a teenager. Why does this happen? It's because we get hooked to that dopamine that we get on the climb. You're climbing the ranks, right? You're going up in rank. Every time you climb a little bit, you're like, fuck yeah, like I'm going up in the ranks, right? It gives you that feeling like you're climbing because you're getting those dopamine hits. But the reality is that you're not climbing in anything that actually matters. Okay, you're climbing in a virtual world that actually has no bearing on your actual life, right? And so there's two different pathways of dopamine that can go in your brain. Now, look, I'm not an expert, so I'm not a neuroscientist, but just take this for what it's worth. There's the mesolimbic pathway, which, just think about it as it's the shorter pathway to get dopamine, right? It goes to your limbic system. And there's the mesocortical pathway, which is a longer pathway. Okay, that's when you're doing harder stuff. Okay, now we've been so conditioned and our mesolimbic pathway is so hijacked, right, by these social media apps, that doing the harder stuff, getting the longer, harder hits of dopamine is no longer as attractive to us. Like, think about it this way. Your brain, your monkey brain, is looking at swiping Instagram versus spending 6 months slogging away horribly at some business that you don't even know if it's gonna work or not. Maybe you'll get a dopamine hit in like 6 months' time. Your monkey brain is looking at these two things, and it's a no-brainer. Like, comparatively, doing that 6-month work on a business thing is ludicrous. Why would I do that? If I can just get little hits from this video game, if I can just climb the ranks in this video game, that's so much easier. Your monkey brain is going to pick the path of least resistance, of course. You actually also don't even know what doing the work even means, right? Or what that even looks like anymore. Like, you forgot it. Maybe you knew it before somehow, but you've forgotten, right? Or maybe you haven't even known it in your life, right? Like, you, in exchange for doing the 1 or 2 super needle moving things, the things that are actually going to push you forward, in exchange for that, you do irrelevant things that aren't actually moving the needle, but they make you feel productive in some way, and so you do those because they're easier, right? Like, maybe you have a work task that you want to do, and instead of doing that thing, you're like, let me just watch this YouTube video about the thing. Right? Like, watching a video about the thing is not doing the thing. Watching a podcast about that thing is not doing the thing, right? But you choose to do this instead. Even in business, you could be doing this, right? Even when you have, let's say, a business, within that business, you will work on irrelevant things. Okay, I'll give you an example. Let's say that you were going to start a social media marketing agency. Okay, what's the first thing that you thought of to do right there when I said that? You probably thought, let me go and create the website, okay? You would go and you would spend 2 weeks having, okay, I have a social media marketing agency. You would spend 2 days designing some pretty logo, coming up with some nice name, and then you spend 2 weeks building out a website that gets no traffic anyway. It's not gonna get any traffic from anywhere other than maybe like your mom or like the 1 or 2 friends that you tell about this thing that you're doing. That's it. Those are the only traffic sources. No other traffic. You're gonna spend 2 weeks figuring out the color scheme and which color goes with this other color on the website, and what color should my button be here, and oh, should my buttons be rounded? Maybe I make my buttons round. Oh no, or should they be square? Or maybe I should make them 50% rounded. Maybe that looks nicer. Is the font here too big? Is it bold or semi-bold? Which one looks better? You spend 2 weeks doing that shit, okay, for a website that has no traffic, okay, and you are fucked. You're so fucked if that's your idea of doing the work. Okay, because there is going to be someone out there who's experienced, who, let's say, started this same social media marketing agency at the same time as you, and you started building this pretty little website, and they just immediately started doing 100 cold calls a day for 2 weeks, right? So that's 5 work days, 5, that's 10, that's 1,000 cold calls. Maybe they're really shit and they only book 10 sales appointments from those cold calls, and then they're shit at sales and they close 1 out of 10. They've just made money. They've just made this a profitable business. You could have had a profitable business in 2 weeks, right? But instead you chose to make a pretty little website because it made you feel like you were doing work. Why do we do this? It's because you're prioritizing your actions around pain avoidance. Okay, I actually talked about this in my previous video, which is the action taker trap that you're falling into. So if you haven't watched that video, check it out because I talked in there about prioritizing around pain avoidance and how that is the worst thing that you can do. If there is a map, if there is a decision tree, right, of actions that you could potentially take, and you prioritize your selection of those actions based merely or primarily on pain avoidance, which is the least painful thing, let me do that. That's what your brain has a tendency to do, right? We talked about this earlier in the video. Uninspected and left on its own, your brain will try to pick the easiest thing, the least painful thing to do. Okay, so this is why when it comes down to all of the potential work tasks that you could be doing, if you're not careful, you will just do the easiest ones. Okay, and so this cannot be. And again, look, sometimes you might say, well, Chris, but there's also a bit of ignorance. Like sometimes I really don't know what to work on. I understand, right? Sometimes that really is the case, but it's very rare. I would say it's maybe 10-20% of the time that you actually genuinely are clueless and you don't know what to work on. The other 80-90% of the time, if you just inspect your brain, you really just inspect it, I promise you something will come up, something ugly, something painful that you really don't want to do will come up. You do know what that thing is. You're just not doing it, right? And so the really successful people that you might look up to or that you might know personally, the difference is that, and that future version of you, by the way, that exists, you could be that successful person. He or she is not prioritizing around pain avoidance. They're just doing what needs to be done, right? I was just talking to Joe. I'm staying with another entrepreneur here. His name's Joe. We're staying in this, in Crete together. We were just talking about this the other day, that we no longer prioritize around pain avoidance at all. It doesn't actually come up in the decision making, right? When I'm thinking about what to do, I just think, okay, what needs to be done, right? What is required of me to do in the business right now? Okay, let me do that. What has to be done here? Like, what is the biggest needle moving? Like, where's the constraint in my business? What has to be done? Boom, okay, I'm gonna do that. Like, it's not even in the equation anymore. Like, oh, but which one is painful? Like, it's not a conscious process, but unconsciously your brain is doing this, right? So for when you get more experience in business, you start to not even factor in the pain anymore, and you just look, what needs to be done? What is required of me in this moment? Okay, let me do that. There might be a little voice that's like, oh, fuck, that's a painful thing. Damn, that's difficult. But still, you're like, okay, well, suck it up. That's what I have to do. That is the needle mover. That's what I have to do. So 2 little action steps for you, okay, today. First one is to ask yourself now, what is the most painfully productive thing that you could do right now? And promise yourself that you're gonna do it at least today, okay? Or at least in the next 24 hours if you're watching this at night or whatever. Promise yourself that you're gonna do that most painfully, or you're at least gonna start on it, okay? You're at least gonna do step 1 of the most painfully productive thing that you could do, okay? That's action step number 1. Action step number 2 is from this point onwards, right after you finish this video, notice in yourself how you prioritize your actions. Every time there's a chance for you to take some kind of action, make a decision somewhere, notice that pain avoidance is a part of that decision-making process. Notice when you're like, I actually really don't want to do that thing because it seems really painful. And this is what Chris talked about in this video, right? It's the pain avoidance thing. I guess it really is part of the equation. Damn. Like, just notice that. Notice it repeatedly, and the better you get at recognizing this, that is how you improve. That's how you start to be like, hang on, wow, I am really just avoiding this fucking thing because it's so painful. Fuck. Damn. And like, once you notice that enough times, you're gonna be like, no, I gotta do it. I gotta do it. Because the things that are, most of the things that you want are behind the hardest, most painful things that you could do, right? In that list of things I could do today, the most painful ones, obviously I'm not talking about like going and breaking your own leg, but you know what I'm saying, right? Most of the great things in life are behind the most painful actions that you could take. So just start to notice that. That's the second action step. Your work efficiency is also trash because you actually frighten yourself into inaction. Okay, like you scare yourself to death with steps 1 through 10 when really all you need to do is actually do step 1 first. But you're thinking of step 10 and it's so scary that you don't even get started. Okay, now I actually learned this when I was in the army. Right, so I served 2 years in the army in Singapore. I was an infantry officer, right? So during my trainee days, we had this exercise where we were going to get our green beret, right? Because in infantry, you get a green beret. So it's really cool. It's like a whole big thing where you're like, you've been wearing this little shitty thing, little jockey cap for so many months and you're so excited to get this green beret, but it's a whole big exercise, right? You have to fight a mission and everything. There's a march, there's a huge long march overnight to the mission and everything like that. So we were supposed to do an 8-kilometer march, right, through the jungle. I mean, like, you're literally in the jungle, you're like bashing, you're getting through the trees and everything like that. It's supposed to be 8 kilometers from, you know, from the nighttime all the way to sunrise, and sunrise when we're supposed to attack, right, this area. Okay, it was supposed to be 8 kilometers there, but there was a whole bunch of obstructions and actually some construction going on in the area, the training area that we were in. And so, you know, those of us that were navigating looked to the instructors and looked at the construction that wasn't on the map that we're given, and we're like, what do we do? And they're like, fuck you, what do you do? Fucking figure it out. So we're like, okay. So from 8 kilometers, we ended up detouring, right? We detoured so far that the march ended up becoming like 16, I think it was 15.8 kilometers instead of 8. Okay. It was insane. It was probably one of the hardest physical things that I've ever had to do in my life, full stop. Maybe even the hardest, honestly. And what I learned during that process, I wanted to stop so bad. Like, I wanted to, what in the army they would call fall out, right? Fall out means that you actually just, you're sick or you're injured or whatever, and you get to like stop doing the exercise. But everybody else continues, but you just stop, right? I wanted to fall out so bad. I would be looking at, like, we'd be on a path and I'd see a rock, and there'd be this voice in my head that'd go like, Chris, if you step on that rock right now and you can roll your ankle and you can like just break your fucking ankle and you can just stop. Like, imagine that, like, having a voice in your head that's the loudest voice right now is the one that's saying, bro, step on that rock, like, just roll your ankle so that you can stop. It's worth it. Okay, that's how much pain I was in. So what I learned in that moment, or during those few hours that we were marching, was me thinking about getting to the destination was so far away that it crushed my soul, thinking about, like, how much longer until we're gonna get to the like the form-up point. Like, that's so far. Like, it crushed my soul. So what did I do? I was forced not to think about any of that. I really couldn't. I couldn't even think about the next time we were gonna stop. All I could do to survive in that moment was think about literally taking the next step with my right foot or my left foot. My brain was literally saying, for hours, it was literally going, okay, now move the next foot. Okay, now move the next foot. All right, now move the next. That's it. It was like that for hours. That's all I could think of. It was literally just taking the next step forward. I couldn't even think about 100 meters, let alone fucking 16 kilometers. Okay, so how this relates to your productivity is that if you're an intelligent person, you're gonna get really excited, right? Thinking about maybe this business or this little thing that you can start. Oh, I want to start this thing. I'll make money like through social media, through this thing. Oh, that sounds so cool. But then you start to play with the idea, and the idea goes from, look, this is so simple, to boom, this is so complex, and you have to do this, and you have to do that, and that. And step one goes to like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you look at all of that, and the complexity overwhelms you. And then you go from wanting to start to thinking, maybe I'll do it later when I figure out this like one little kink in like step 7 or something that you haven't figured out, because you simply don't have the perspective from which to make a judgment about that thing anyway, because you're still at the beginning. But your brain will go like, yeah, well, I haven't worked that one little thing out yet in this plan, and I don't know, maybe it won't work. Think about it later. So the problem with this is that you simply don't have the perspective. When you're at step 0, you don't have the perspective from which to make a judgment about steps 3 to 10, like genuinely, right? So what you need to do is you need to think of step 1 and maybe steps 2 and 3 if they're relevant, and then you need to immediately then take action on step 1. Save yourself the fear that comes with thinking about steps 3 to 10 and all the complexity. It's gonna scare the fuck out of you, okay? So think about step 1, if necessary, steps 2 and 3 if they're relevant, and then immediately start taking action on step 1. Okay, if you're going to create an Instagram page and you're going to funnel things from that Instagram page, your audience from there, you're gonna funnel them to, let's say, an ebook or some kind of product, right? Start with, okay, let me create the page. What's this gonna be? Just immediately start taking action. Otherwise, it's gonna terrify you. What's easier to your brain? Think about this. What's easier to your brain? Scaling Mount Everest or like getting to base camp first, right? Like publishing a whole book or writing one sentence, right? So you need your work to be in bite-sized chunks that actually don't terrify you when you look at them in the face, right? Writing a sentence is so much more digestible to your brain than like, let me publish an entire book, right? So like this sounds so commonsensical, doesn't it? Like it sounds so like duh, but still, this isn't how your brain works right now, and that's why you're stuck. So action step for this one is think about what it is that you're trying to do, like the goal that you have. Think about what step 1 is and resist the urge to go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Think about what step 1 is and do step 1 today or in the next 24 hours, okay? Do that for yourself, okay? Think about what step 1 is and take action on it today. The thing that's stopping you from taking action is the fear, the complexity, the pain. We've already talked about all of that in this video. Action step is think about step 1, start on it today, okay? And stop coping with all, oh, but I'm tired. Oh, but today's not a good day because of this thing. And then because of everyone who is successful, who you've ever known or who you've ever looked up to, has felt and is feeling this exact thing that you're pointing to right now, the exact thing that you're feeling. They've all felt it. The only difference is that feeling didn't stop them. They didn't let that feeling stop them from still doing the thing. They still went on to do the fucking thing that you aren't gonna do because of this feeling. Because of this, oh, well, today was, I'm tired. The only difference is that the successful people still do the thing. The last thing I'm gonna leave you with in this video is a quote from Alex Hormozy. You're gonna lose sleep. You'll doubt whether it'll work. You'll stress to make ends meet. You won't finish your to-do list. You'll wonder if you made the right call and have no way to know for years. This is what hard feels like, and that's okay. All right, if you've made it to the end of this video, you have the means to succeed, okay? And that version of you that we've been talking about this whole video, the version of you that could succeed with any of those ventures that you pursued. These principles, if you can take them and you can apply them, I guarantee you will see great differences in your life. And that makes me excited just thinking about that, right? And so remember, this is what hard feels like. And that's okay. All right. Take care. thank you so much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, leave a like and subscribe. And if you're inclined to do so, comment what you thought about this video, anything that you agree with. And hell, if you think that I'm just full of shit and you disagree with, some things, let me know as well. And yeah, also, if you're interested in actually being around a community of guys that are into these things and that are applying these things in their life, these mental models, these frameworks constantly, and if you want to be around like-minded men like you and I, who are actually trying to pursue something great, right? You need to not be held back by people. You need to be around people who are constantly supporting those goals. So if you want to be in a community of guys like that, you can consider checking out my community. It's called the Winners Circle. The link to that is in the bio. If you want to be around a group of people like that or not, completely up to you. But if you've enjoyed this video, then that makes me really happy. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.